You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always is my good friend
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And how goes it?
Well, Mike, I got to say to you, welcome to the hills of Texas, because that's where you are.
That's right. I hopped the flight, came down here to Texas. Since Jay wasn't able to get to the Electric Festival, I took a little bit of time and worked my schedule to where I had a few days off and came down here to visit. Plus, I had to come down to see about your arrival for your birthday.
That's right. My birthday was just a couple of weeks ago, and lo and behold, nothing came. It was kind of just a boring birthday. Just went to the movies. It was okay. It was fine. But 2 or 3 days later, Mike had made a comment to me. We were talking on the phone about something, and then he said something like, "Hey, yeah, so make sure you're home tomorrow," or he didn't say big surprise. It was just kind of this. You just kind of left it blank, like something's going on tomorrow. You're going to be home, or you're going to want to be home tomorrow, or something. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
What I actually said, I was talking to you on the phone, right? And I said, well, I guess I'll talk to you tomorrow. Oh, no, I said, I guess I'll expect a call from you tomorrow.
That's what it was.
Right.
And I was kind of like, why? Just talk to you right now. What am I going to call you tomorrow for? I mean, that's only like 8 hours. What am I going to call you?
Exactly.
What am I going to call you in 8 hours for?
So sure enough, the very next day, it was that Monday, actually, because your birthday was on like a Wednesday.
Right.
And I was tracking the package, and for some reason
Monday,
or another,
Tuesday,
it got weather in the Midwest or whatever, it got delayed. So anyway, it didn't arrive on Friday, so it was coming in on Monday. And we had talked Sunday evening, I guess. And I was like, I'll expect a call from you tomorrow. And you're like, oh, sure, So then about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rings, and I picked up the phone and go, now there's the call I was expecting.
Well, then I finally understood, right?
Right.
And the funny part was my mom answered the phone. I mean, not the phone, the door.
Right.
And so I kind of, I heard it. I didn't really know anything. I just thought somebody was coming by to talk to her, because after surgery, people keep dropping by to say hello.
Sure.
So I didn't think nothing of it until I went walking out down the hallway, walking past the front door, and I see a box, but it wasn't as big as a coffin, but it was big enough that it got my attention. I went, what? Hey, what is that sitting? It was one of those, why is that here? Did I order? What? Click, 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 clack. And then I go, Mike's comment. Oh, crap. That's what he was talking about.
Right.
So I walked over and I'm like, hee. So I'm all carrying it in, and I pulled out, it's a box within a box. So I opened up the first layer, and then the next I saw it said, Motion RC on it. And I was like, whoa. Sure enough, you got me a jet.
Yep. I got you the L39. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And it was pretty funny too, because when I shipped it, it has 2 lines. The first line is for your name. Right?
Oh yeah.
And first line is your name, and the second line is your company name.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a company that they're shipping it to, so the first line I put your first name was Happy, the last name was Birthday, and then I put J Neely, Jay on the corporation line. And so when it came to you on the label, it said Happy Birthday, Jay Neely. So
it was awesome.
I thought that was kind of cool. So anyway, I got the call from Jay, and he was all excited. Oh, now we get to figure out, And so it was then I dropped the bomb that I was coming down, because you didn't know that before.
No.
Yeah. So I told him, I was like, okay, well, you can put it together, go fly, or you can wait till Friday or Saturday, actually. When I come off my trip, I will be there around noon.
And actually, I didn't hear that at first, because I was already like, what do you mean wait till Friday? I was like, wait for Friday. Didn't you say you can assemble this in 15 minutes? That's what I had. That's what I had in my head. 15 minutes, maybe 20. 25 if I get drink a soda or something while putting it together.
Right.
So, basically it worked out perfect, because the time for your trip arrival actually worked out, because I had to get a new set of batteries for this thing.
Right, that's correct. And that's why I kind of sent it a little earlier rather than just where it arrived. Because last time I think I sent something other than the coffin, beaver. I was here when it showed up.
Right.
So, but this time I knew you needed some 5,000 milliamp batteries, which
Right.
is your first jump into a big 6 cell.
Well,
right?
no, I do have some, but they're
yeah.
old.
Yeah. So this is the new stuff.
I
right?
knew that this would need a higher, C rating, and plus
way higher C rating.
Plus, I figured it's not a good idea to put a tired, a grandpa battery that I use to, power
exactly.
like my FPV, goggles or to power my display screen.
Sure.
May not be up to the task for pushing, 70 amps of power, raw power through EDF ducts.
Yeah, I don't know if it's even 70 because it's 130 amp ESC. I think it's more like 95.
Oh, okay. Well, I knew the batteries I had weren't up to the task. And so then it began, it was like, oh boy, I got this. And then I think afterwards it registered, oh, you're coming. Oh boy, you're coming.
Right.
And then I was like, oh boy, oh crap, I got to get a bunch of stuff. So then that night I got on the internet and I started doing my RC broker stuff.
Sure.
And I started looking for batteries, and you recommended some batteries to me, and I did the whole thing, looking at graphene, looking at what you recommended to me.
Right.
And I was kind of kicking myself because the day or two before, Hobby King's sale had ended.
Right.
Their battery sale had ended, and I'm like, no. No, it just ended. I sent that notice out to everybody. And it's ended? No. Oh man, my luck. So I was all grumbling about it, and it's a good thing that I didn't pull the trigger that night.
Yeah.
Which
is fairly unlike you. Normally you're a late night shopper, so you'd be like, "Oh, this is a good deal." And I know you do shop, but normally if you find a good deal and you go, wow, this is, Hobby King has a sale and this is ready to go. And you knew they were coming in, so you had some timing issues.
Sure.
But it was a good thing you waited.
I'm glad I did, because I got a email from both you and Spencer the very next day.
Simultaneously, actually.
Well, almost.
but
I basically I got an email from you guys saying, hey, eBay's having, 15% off, whatever.
Right.
And I was like, really? And I had already I kind of, at that time, I guess last night, I kind of decided on what I wanted to do. And it was the batteries that you like.
HRB.
HRB, and the not manufacturer, but at least the supplier of them up in Chicago. They were doing not a 2-for-1, but they were having a special where you name your own price. Give us your best offer.
Sure.
So I put in my offer, and then they counter offered, and then all of a sudden, bam,
15%
off. So I was like, ooh.
Which was an eBay thing, not a not the seller.
It wasn't
the
seller.
Was already offering 5%
it was eBay.
off.
It was eBay's thing. So the 15% with the lower price I got from the supplier, man, I got a good deal on those batteries.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy.
And they were shipped right away.
They came very quick. They
Yep.
came way faster than I expected.
And typical. I saw them as well, and I wanted to order some, and I figured, well, I'll just order 2 more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in my head, I'm thinking, I'll just order 2 more. So I clicked 2.
Oh, but you had a different deal.
I had a different deal
because the supplier had a couple of different deals.
Right.
I got
this one was two for the for one price.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, I'll take 2 of those. And so I got 4 batteries total. So I was only planning on buying 2 of the 5,000 milliamp. I wound up buying 4. So
they won't go to waste.
No.
So
anyway.
So what do you have now that takes those?
Well, let's see. From the top of the list, I've got the A10 that takes 2.
Right.
I got the L39 that takes 1. I got the F15 that takes 1.
Right.
So those are the EDF portions. And then I've got basically my Cub, my Super Cub takes, or my J3 Cub takes a 6 cell.
Does it take a 6 cell or a 4
sir.
cell? Okay,
No,
it takes
6 cell.
Okay.
My little Katana, my 60-inch Katana S electric
right.
takes a 6 cell. And my S12, my Pitts S12.
That's right. That's my gift that I gave you for Christmas. Yeah, that's right.
Which, I'm pretty excited about because those, 3D type airplanes, I've been using same thing. I've had 300 milliamp tired, they're kind of those old Turnigy ones that I got a million years ago when I first got those airplanes.
Right.
So now that I have these, I'm like, oh, well, I could just buy, next set of batteries. If I get 2, that takes care of 2 airplanes. I could actually fly. But the exciting thing is that, now I stacked them all up. I think I took a picture and sent it to you.
Yeah, you did.
I think I have 12 of them now.
Well, you know what? It reminded me of one of those Colombian drug lords who have all their stacks of money.
That's right, yeah. Well, the funny part is I got those in the mail and I was getting them out because I keep mine in a little mini fridge, just at a lower temperature so that they stay consistent. They're not, in Phoenix it gets super hot, super cold. And so anyway, I just keep them at a constant temperature in their storage charge for that size battery. I always storage charge them.
Now, now hold on. For our listeners, that is totally unlike you. So explain why you went ahead and started doing that.
Well, it's unlike me because I have so many batteries that are small, and I'm flying them so often. If I have a 3-cell battery, and I've got so much stuff in my inventory that I just charge it up, go, fly at the field, come back. I'm usually flying a week later, and, the battery's, $15, $20, and it's no big deal. These batteries are literally $100 a piece.
Right.
So, and they're 6 cells. So if one of the cells goes bad, you pretty much have a 5-cell battery now, and
right.
And it doesn't charge right and the whole thing. And you either got to cut that cell out, or
you got to do a little surgery.
So, because we fly these things EDF wise, and that's basically what they're for. We're pushing a lot of amps through them. So we're doing a very high discharge and we're doing a very high charge, because normally when Spencer and I and Barry and I are flying, we are charging basically at 40 amps. So we'll charge 5 batteries at 10 amps each.
Wow.
So I mean, we're pushing a lot. Otherwise, it'll take 2 days to charge 5,000 milliamp cell batteries, 6-cell batteries. It takes forever. Right. I mean, I've literally put 4 of them on a charge at 1C. 2 days later, and it's
right.
like,
and that's totally new because you didn't do that before, so that was kind of an eye opener.
And I actually had on my Cell Pro, my Cell Pro Lab 6 or whatever it is, or Cell Lab 6. I actually had to go back through and find that program that actually allows me to charge at a higher one.
Yeah, that's the one that says it's high power, right?
It is high power. Yep. So it allows you to go higher than 3C.
I think it's 3C. Yeah, 4C.
So normally on all of them you can go 3C, and then I normally go higher. But so for these, because we discharge them and charge them at such high rates, and they do a really good battery. I've been really, really happy with these HRBs, and I actually have others. I have the Admiral from Motion, and I have a couple of Gens Ace. But the HRBs, for the price point, and they don't, I've flown them really hard. They haven't puffed yet. Of course, none of the other ones have either. But these are just built, I think, with that helicopter in mind, because they're actually built for a 700 size helicopter, electric helicopter. Wow. So we buy them and throw them in the EDFs, and they seem to do okay. I will tell you that Barry probably 2 weeks ago flew his down to 3%.
Ooh,
yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, and I actually had another one in my F-16 that I flew to 1%.
Now, when you normally fly, what are you getting these batteries down to? What are you ultimately trying to get shoot for?
Well, I normally get them down to 3.7 volts.
Okay.
I mean, if I fly any more than that, you're pretty much now having to baby them back up to where they need to be. But that's about 30% for me. Between 30 and 35.
That's good.
I do a little over 3.5 minutes on the L39 with it. So Spencer and I have been talking about the chemistry in the batteries, and because he flies a lot of big stuff like that, and he's got some EDF stuff, and so he's got graphenes in these HRBs, and he has a little mini fridge. He's like, yeah, it's just in Phoenix. I keep them, consistent temperature. And
well,
so
I had heard that too, because what you should do for batteries, if you can, is to go ahead and put them in a refrigerator.
Sure.
Make sure you take them down. If you're not going to be using them, take them down to half charge, or storage charge. And I have to admit, even though I know this, and here we are preaching this stuff all the time, like you, I've been like, my 1,000, I killed it. That was $10.
I know, right?
That was $8. I'll just buy another. What my next thing of putting out buying batteries, I'll buy another one. But like you said, now that I've spent some ducats for for these, yes. I'm like, I better take a little bit better care of these batteries here. So.
Yeah, and I'm not. Some guys are very detailed about their batteries. They put they have a little booklet, and they say, okay, this battery was built here. And
my buddy Pete did that all the time.
Exactly. And this is the internal resistance of every cell. This is what I charged it to. This is what I discharged it at. And they keep like a whole manual. So they know that their battery. I'm not to that point. I mean, I'll fly it hard, put it up. I have a little battery checker. I'll check it to make sure. And then at the end of the day, I'm not as bad as Spencer. God love him. He does it right at the field. So his batteries show up in a storage charge and leave in a storage charge.
Really?
Yeah. And mine don't. Mine show up in a storage charge, and then I might do a storage charge when I get home. But but in his mind, he's like, dude, I'm busy enough that when I get there, if I throw them in the trailer, or if I leave them in there, I'm screwed because I'll be gone and then come back a week later and they're
they're toast.
Not that I think that in a week they would go bad, but you just
it's cool.
It's cool. And our temperature is getting hotter in Phoenix now anyway. So, so having said all that, that is new for me. But however, like I said, we kind of going back to what we were talking about with this big pile of batteries. So I have 12 of these 6 cells all piled up, and you're right. It looks like this little, drug dealer little brick thing. And so my wife comes walking in there, and she, first thing she goes, "What is that?" And I go, "Oh, I got my new batteries in the mail." And she's like, "Oh." She's like, "Oh, how much are those?" And I go, well, how
which
do I
ring do you like?
Exactly.
Which out of this booklet? Which you can get the top shelf, you can get the second shelf. That's what.
And that's the funny part because I asked her. I said, "Well, do you want me to lie to you, or you want me to tell you the truth?" And she's like, "Oh, come on, And it's not like she's ever complained. God love her. I've got the best wife because stuff will show up. She never asks. She just nods her head. She'll shake her head. We've kind of figured out the whole sending each other thing. I think she's listened to the podcast enough to know that we're doing that, so it doesn't really matter at this point. But anyway, so I told her, I said, well, this is probably $1,200, because there's 12 batteries at $100 a piece. She turns around and looks at me, and she goes, "You're spending $1,200 per battery?" And I went, no, not per battery. And she's like, "What?" I was like, no, the whole thing, this whole pile right here, it's not really, it's worth $1,200, but I didn't pay that for it. I paid a lot less." And she goes, "So it's not $1,200 a battery?" And I go, no.
Yeah.
And then I look back at her and I go, "But you were okay with that?" Because I'm thinking to myself,
ding, ding, ding.
I'm going to go to the graphene store.
That's right. Well, hey, speaking of that, the HRB batteries from those folks,
yes,
they put out
they just came out with a graphene battery.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm interested to see it. Of course, I wish I'd have known that when I bought these because they came out simultaneously, and I should have just. If I'd have known that, I would have probably jumped into the graphene and see how it works. I will tell you the graphene batteries are a little bit thicker.
Yes.
So, in my F-15, that may be a problem because it's a very narrow fuselage.
Right.
However, in the L39, you got plenty of room, and in the A-10, you got plenty of room.
Right.
Actually, in the A-10, if I move it too far forward, I can't put the canopy on it. So I may have an issue with the A-10.
That's why they have duct tape.
Yeah. True. Duct tape the
Let's
canopy
fly.
on. So... But so it came. You got the batteries. I got the 4. You got 2. They're arrived, and then I showed up, and sure enough, I flew all the way here. We picked up.
Wait! Before you showed up, though, right? What's the thing that you turned me? What ended up consuming both of our lives for like a day or two? Hey, what are you going to paint it?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
I don't know how many times you've got me to go down the rabbit hole and lose. Like I was going to cure cancer. I was going to help that lady out with her appendix.
World peace.
Yeah, world peace. And then Mike says, "Hey, look at this paint scheme.
Right.
Hey, look that's usually how our things start out. We like, hey, look at this picture. Hey, look at this picture."
Yeah, and the bad news was that we were on the phone. Because you had called me,
right?
We were talking, and
but we got on. We got on Skype or we got on.
We did that. And we were on there, but we kept flicking each other. Hey, look at this paint scheme. Hey, look at this paint scheme.
Yeah.
So I asked, hey, what are you going to paint it? Because that seemed to be the thing to do now. I painted mine. Barry painted his. Spencer.
Well, yeah, but
around.
All 3 of you guys are flying at the same time.
Yeah, that's true.
So it makes perfect sense that you would paint them different colors.
Well, I wanted mine painted anyway. I didn't. Right. I don't like this paint scheme.
Oh, you don't?
No. The Swiss blue, red. I mean, it's cool airplane, and I've flown Barry's and Spencer's both in this paint scheme. But as soon as I opened the box, man, mine hit the paint rack. I mean, I didn't even fly it. I just whipped out the brush and started painting it. And I think actually on our webpage there's a picture of it on one of our.
No, I think there is.
And then on the Electric Festival, everybody loved it. I mean, they thought it was the coolest. There's a bunch more pictures of my airplane flying than the other guys, but yeah, it's just. And then I kind of felt bad because Spencer said, "Yeah, you stole my paint scheme." I felt bad for him. I go, "No,
you've been plotting all your life." Whoa! First, I befriended this guy named Spencer, then I ruined his life.
And I know Spencer's listening, so he's probably been like, yeah. So he got his iPad out basically and said, look, I've had this since, here's the date when I downloaded it on my iPad.
But did he register it? No, he did not.
He
did he go down to the patent office?
Nope.
Paint scheme office? No, he did not.
And the thing is, he said that he told me that, oh yeah, that's the paint scheme, I'm going to paint mine. But I honestly, I don't remember.
You stole, it's like a girlfriend or something. You know? Yeah, you told me you stole that man from me, you know?
Yeah, like 20 years later, we were like,
I told you I liked him.
Exactly. So, but yeah, that's right. It consumed a couple of days because I was like, all right, well, are you going to paint it or what are you going to do? Because I figured you would have it painted by the time I got down here. Because it's a lot easier to pull it out of the box,
yes,
and spray it.
It is. You are correct, but just with other things I was trying to get done before you got down here.
Right.
And
so I walked in.
It was like
room.
lickety split, and I was like, well, I might as well just wait till like you were gonna be here for a full 2 weeks. So I'm like,
that's right.
I'm thinking of all the things we're gonna do, and I'm like, well, shoot, what why ruin myself over trying to do a paint scheme when I have a guy who's already painted one and he can come here and assist me, and plus, that give us something to do.
Like there's not enough to do
right?
here, right?
That's true too.
Not enough. I got to paint. So, well, it was just one of those things that I just thought, well, here's the paint schemes. You pick one, and actually, you found one that you really liked.
I have.
You really, really liked it. I like it too. It's been growing on me. But
like I said, that's why I'm thinking that may be what we're going to be doing next week.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, we won't ruin it, so that way we can put it on Facebook Live and.
That'll be awesome.
Yep. So if you're listening for the first time or you're still a listener, make sure you go to our Facebook Live. Actually, it's not Facebook Live. It's Facebook Podcast. What is it? Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook.
Yes, that's it.
Register. You just have to answer a question, and we'll.
Do you like RC?
Do you like RC planes? Trust me, as many of these guys I've approved that have put some derogatory comments towards me. I get it. But anyway, there's our group is growing. We've gotten well over 50 members now, and it's getting bigger every time. So if you're from another podcast that you've been listening to that's no longer around and you're joining us, welcome. And jump on there and register so we can show you some pictures and some of the fun things.
Absolutely.
So, but anyway, I walked down the room and it was still in the box.
Yes, it was.
I was like, hey. Actually, the funny part about it is that the whole box was it was full in the box, but the tail was sitting like across the room.
Dude, do you think
I would
understand? Do you think I would get a box like that and not tear it apart and inspect every little thing?
Oh yeah, no, I know you did, but I thought it was very amazing that you put it all back.
I put it all back just so we could have room to.
Oh, okay.
We need.
Otherwise, it would be all.
Even
over
though
the
it
place,
does not look. Looking at my desk now, it does not look like I
cleaned up.
I cleaned for you at all. I was like, why? Why did I even clean the desk if it's going to look like this?
Yeah. Well, we've done a lot of work.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So to be honest, I've been here a week. So
has it been a week?
Yeah, it's been. I showed up last weekend, and it's the weekend, and actually, this podcast comes out on Tuesday. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
we're kind of doing halfway. Like, hey, here we go. So anyway, it was still in the box, and I thought, well, what do you want to do with this? And he's like, well, let's put it together. So it literally took 15 minutes, and
you weren't kidding.
Yeah, it really is. It's a great model. The model comes with a tail section. Actually, the fuselage is in two pieces. They give you some Beacons glue. It's not. It's actually in a white tube, but I think
it's not the typical Chinese.
Yeah, it's not the old gooey yellow stuff.
GWS type glue.
Right. This is actually clear, and it's exactly like Beacons. I think they may have made a deal or something. But anyway, we can let those guys tell us about it. But it works really well. You just put it on the foam tail section, and you kind of tack it together, and then push it. It's kind of like, what do you call that kind of glue that cement. It's like rubber cement, not rubber cement, contact cement.
Contact cement, similar.
So
it's not, though. But yeah.
No, but you put it on both sides, and then you kind of touch it together. It comes real stringy.
Yeah, you get
let
it real
dry
stringy and a little tack. You let it
dry for about a minute or two.
Outgas the solvent.
Right.
And then it goes together.
As soon as you stick it together, it's stuck.
Yeah.
So we put the tail on. We pulled the wires through, or we put the fuselage together. Pulled the wires through for the elevator.
Yeah,
and the
that
tail.
Impressed me because they actually give you a tool for that.
They do. They give you a little
wire. I thought
wire.
that was pretty.
And the wire's bent at just the right angle, so you don't have to like fish around and pull it through. It's got a little bend in it, so you just shove it through the hole, and it comes right out. You put the servo leads on it and pull it right through. So we pulled those through, and literally it takes 4 screws for the tail.
This is crazy,
and
folks.
4 screws for the elevator.
You're thinking this big jet,
because it's 80 millimeter.
80 millimeter jet. You're thinking, oh man, it's going to have some killer screws to keep the wings on, right? It's going to have to you're going to have some serious bolts going through this thing.
Yeah.
I've had some foamies that had bigger screws,
longer screws.
Longer screws, not bigger.
They're big, but they're
not
short.
big, dude. They're just not okay. Yes, you're correct. It's just the size of them or the shortness of them is so small that with the rest of the plane they just seem so tiny.
They do seem tiny, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're not like servo screws.
I'm like, I see where Motion's saving their money. They're making tons in repairs, or not repairs, but in parts.
Selling parts. Yeah,
exactly, as the wings flap. But that's not what's happening. It actually holds together. It's hard plastic against hard plastic. So I guess you don't need a screw or bolt that's 6 inches long.
No, you just need something to go in. It goes in about 4 turns, and that's all you really need.
Yeah,
any more than that, you're only holding 4 turns.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. So. That's true. But it's just a psychological thing. You're just like, wow, that's it, guys. Right. Really. I'll pay the extra 15 cents.
Exactly. Just give me a half inch longer.
Exactly. Maybe I'll get some drywall screws. Now that's going to hold.
Come out the bottom.
Exactly.
What's this little thing out the bottom? That's my hook.
Oh my gosh. But go ahead. Okay, so put the screws in.
So we put I put the tail on. I put 4 screws in the vertical stab, and I put 4 screws in the horizontal stab, and that was it. Now it's ready together, and so we pull the wing, to put the wing on, there's 4 screws for the wing.
Right.
So
tiny
12
little screws.
12 total screws. And then we had, you actually had an Aura 8 laying around from the last time, I think I got.
2 years ago
Mm-hmm.
At the Electric Festival.
Yeah.
I got the Aura 8.
Picked one of those up. Yep. And so you had one of those, and I was like, ooh, that's good. You got a stabilizer because they're fun to fly with stabilizers. And so anyway, we threw that in there, used it as a receiver anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So Barry was nice enough to just shoot me a text with all the settings already ready to go. So we walked in there and downloaded those, stuck them in there, and flipped the switch, and gear came down, and we're ready to go.
The gear did not come down. That took the longest part, was getting the gear down.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Yeah.
Barry's going to love this, too, because he's all the time talking about how I screw things up.
Oh, yeah.
And, so the gear, the way the Aura works is that it has channels 1 through 5, basically. So 1 is the throttle, 2 is the ailerons, 3 is the elevator, 4 is the rudder, 5 is the gear, and 6 is the flap.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the way this is set up is it has nose wheel steering as well, and we split the nose wheel steering off of the rudder channel and put it in a different channel.
Right.
So we do that, and then the gyro itself, the gain and everything, has to have a open channel as well. So that's channel 5, which is the gear. So I was frustrated. I was like, gosh, dang it, this thing is not working. And anyway, we couldn't figure out what the story was. It wasn't working the way I wanted it to. It should have been like 2 minutes because we downloaded the whole thing, and the gear wasn't coming down, and yeah.
Yeah, we're looking at YouTube. We're looking at, we're trying to make stuff on the web. We're just not figuring it out. We're like,
I think I've talked to Barry like 3 times. What's the story?
It must be something simple. Barry's getting frustrated with us being, 1,500 miles away, trying to do a diagnostic, without seeing something, So he's getting kind of frustrated with us, and oh my gosh! But luckily we got it figured out.
Well, and here's the stupid thing. I know what it was. We whenever we plugged it in, the throttle would start beeping.
That's right.
And the gear wouldn't come down.
That's right.
Nothing would come down. And I'm like, what the heck? This doesn't sound right. And then all of a sudden the throttle would just go wide open, and I'd have to shut it off and
unplug it.
Yeah, we couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, I said, well, if all else fails, go back to the beginning, right? So we ran back in the other room and looked at the computer, and come to find out, lo and behold, when we transferred everything to the Aura somewhere, I'm not sure if it came from Barry like that or if I clicked the switch going through, making sure everything was there, but somehow the throttle channel got onto the aileron output. And the gear actually goes on channel 7, not on channel 5. So we had to swap two little things. Download it all back to the Aura, and then voila.
It was relatively simple once
we figured it out, but it was frustrating because it was late. You know, it was typical us. Yeah. You know, I was tired because I'd just flown in.
Yep.
I'd actually flown in from Hawaii and then all night, and then jumped on a flight and flown here,
right.
and then it was 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I'd been up for almost 24 hours, so. So it was partially my fault. I'll take the blame that, I was tired and, everything seemed to be going well, but it just wasn't going well. But anyway, so it went together and the gear came down, the lights came on, everything worked, everything the way it should be. The Aura was, doing
working
its thing.
Yep.
And we were ready to go. Charge some batteries. Let's go, right?
That we did. Charged them up, and then the next morning we got up and we met my buddy Jim.
Yep,
out at the field.
Met Jim at the field.
And
so I know he's a listener too. And Jim, we appreciate you.
Most
your
definitely.
Our patronage. And it was a fun time.
Beautiful morning.
Oh my gosh, it was
no
awesome.
wind. It was perfect day for a maiden. For this
and just slightly cloudy enough that the sun wasn't like really beating down
on you. Yeah,
so it was just nice. I didn't really need to. So what did you think?
So I was really impressed, because it was a lot faster than I thought.
Yeah, it flies about 106.
Yeah, so it was a lot faster than I thought. I have a grass field here, so I was a little apprehensive. Even though it has beautiful trailing link gear, I was still a little apprehensive. But it absorbed it all well, and it took right off. Well. And you flew it around. It was pretty funny because you were flying it around. And you're trimming it out, and then you're like, doing whatever. And I said, hey, so how's the Aura doing? Do you have that on? Did you turn on the...
No, I didn't have it on.
Yeah, you didn't have it on. He goes, and you're like, yeah, it's flying okay, but something's missing, and I'm like...
Well, you're not supposed to trim it with the Aura on.
That's true, too.
Yeah.
But that was
I knew I had it off.
But it was just so funny because I reach over, I click it on for him, and he goes, oh, that's more like it. That's more like it. That's what I was missing.
Well, because I was in my last, 30 seconds of
yeah.
flight, and I'm like, okay, well, it's all trimmed out. It's doing good. But, man, this one feels a little on the, what I call hunting. So it just kind of starts hunting around as it speeds up.
Mm-hmm.
You get that little waggle, the nose, it's kind of that just little rock. It's not – I tell you what, I notice it more now when I fly without, the gyro on.
Right.
Because mine's so rock solid. I mean, it's just,
nice.
Right on. So anyway, he flipped it on, and then I flew a pattern, and I did a couple things. What'd you think of that big tumble?
Well, I missed. I saw the tumble.
Yeah.
I saw the tumble. But that wasn't the part that was kind of. I missed the most impressive part, which was I looked away. I was thinking with another model. You and Jim are up on the line, of course, and then you did. Do you remember what the name of that maneuver is?
You know what? I can't. I'll have to ask Spencer again. It's kind of. I'll have to ask him. It's a weird. It's
because
a weird name.
The next thing I hear is "whoa" from Jim.
Yeah,
and I kind of turn around and I'm like, I look and the plane's flying normally, and I'm like, okay, but it wasn't like a whoa, like that's cool. It was like a whoa, like that's it's
like
all over.
So, yeah,
it's all over.
He thought it was going right into the ground. Yeah. So I'll have to ask Spencer, and hopefully he can shoot me a text and let me know what it is. He told me what it was, but it's something turn, like a Taylor turn or a Tyler turn. Anyway, basically what it is a lot of the turbine guys do it, which is kind of where I learned it because Spencer and Barry do it all the time. But in order to cover less ground, you're moving. I mean, 108 miles an hour, you're moving quick across the ground.
It's very,
so you're
very fast.
Eating a lot of real estate, and in order to stay close to you basically you draw a figure 8 across the runway. So you want to come down the runway, but you're coming at the runway at kind of a 45, and you turn to get lined up with the runway. And then normally what you would normally do is just roll. So like, let's say you're in a left turn.
Right.
So you got 30 degrees left, you're 30 degrees nose down, and you're kind of pulling the nose. And then what you would normally do is just roll wings level and then roll the other direction. Right. So that kind of is what most people do. They level the plane and then roll into the other roll. Well, in this particular turn maneuver that, I've been working with Spencer and Barry on, they go into that low wing, left turn, and they'll roll towards the ground. So they continue the left turn roll, right? They're in this left turn. then they roll to the other direction. So you go from pulling into a left turn to pulling into a right turn, but you do it upside, it's basically a roll upside down, but it's so fast that your airplane changes directions. But because of the way it when it rolls upside down, it looks literally like
you're going to smack right into the ground.
like you're about to just hit the ground, even though the airplane never loses any altitude. It just goes from one turn to the other turn. And I don't know if Jim has ever seen that maneuver before, but he was watching, and so I was coming, ripping through there at full throttle, coming through there. And you have a bigger field, but I was keeping it kind of close for the maiden. And, I did that. So I was in this left turn, rolled it towards the ground and pulled to the right so that it would come back around, on this 45,
right, back down on the runway.
Back down the runway. And he was like, whoa. and Jay like spun around, like all he could see was, he was looking at the ground like, where's the big pile of dust and foam, And I just came around. I was kind of like, I started giggling, because I was kind of like, oh yeah. So it's kind of fun. I mean, I will tell you that hanging out with the guys that have been hanging out with, my skill level has
most definitely
gone way up. Gone way up. Thank
most
you
definitely.
To all those, Spencer, Barry, and the group of Turbine guys I've been hanging out with. But it's really been fun, and I've learned a lot from them, and I appreciate all the stuff they've taught me so far. So I'm looking forward to learning more. But the L39 flew great, and then you guys see the landing, right? Just came in there and just kind of greased it on.
Nothing.
Did really well, and then but I was having to add some trim, and I didn't understand why, and then I realized that one of the aileron control horns was not. I don't know what happened. I think I was adjusting it. I don't know if I actually had it plugged in or if it was turned on, but anyway, it was adjusted a little bit different than what it should have been.
Right.
It was sitting just slightly above the flap setting. So I went ahead and readjusted it with the radio on. I just kind of manually twisted in the linkages to get it to kind of sit where it should be and zeroed out all my trims again. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go fly it again. So I threw the other battery in. I was just going to take it. Actually, I stayed with the battery that I was on because I didn't really fly, but for 3 minutes, and then the battery still had, it was still at 3.7 volts. It had like 50%. So I was just going to do one pattern just to make sure the trim was where it should be.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And anyway, went out there and added full power. Started bouncing down the runway, because it's grass, and immediately aborted.
Yeah,
like,
I'm standing there
like,
and he goes, and the plane kind of goes, and he stops it, and I'm like, I look at him like, what are you doing? What happened? What are you doing? And he's like, he goes, didn't you see that? And I'm like, see what? And he goes, go over and pick the plane up. And I'm like, pick the plane up? What are you talking about? He goes, you'll understand it. So I picked the plane up, and the servo arm is kind of
on the flap.
On the flap is just dangling, just
Yep.
sitting there, and I'm like, "Whoa!" And I'm looking, I'm like, "Did this pop up? Wait, the screw came out of the servo head. I mean, out of the servo arm head.
Right?
Holy crap! That could have been catastrophic."
Well, because I was taking off with full flaps. I mean, on the grass strip,
right.
it worked a little bit better with flaps, but and I may have only been half flaps, but
either way,
one of the flap was down and the other one was about to come up. As soon as I rotated, it would have rolled to the downward. It would have been dragging that way, so it would have rolled really hard.
Oh yeah.
And but I luckily it happened to me. Unfortunately for me, it happened in flight. And I was on the downwind, threw the flaps down, and as soon as I made the turn, I just made this real hard turn around, to come down, and the airplane just kind of went crazy. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And it was out far enough that it was like, which way is it going kind of thing, because I was in a turn when it happened. And I limped it back to the runway. And when I finally got it close enough, I realized what it was and was able to get it onto the runway without an issue. But yeah, I just happened to see it. And it's only because I've been flying the heck out of these things. All of us have one. We're flying it literally 5, 6, 7 times in a row. And, pretty much all day when we go out there, we're flying these things, and we fly them together. So I just happened to see it. It popped off of there, and
we definitely missed the bullet on that one. I thought,
dodged the bullet.
Boy, were we lucky on that. So we got the thing up at the bench. We're checking it out.
Yeah.
We're looking to see how the servo head was back on, and you decided to turn the radio on and.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you have a DX9.
Yeah, I have a DX9.
Flipped it on and immediately got a hardware
Yeah, she said something
error.
she's never said to me before.
Yeah.
System error.
System fault.
System fault, yeah. Mm-hmm. System fault, please return to the factory. And I was like, what did she say? System fault, please return to the factory. And I'm like, whoa. And she just kept repeating it. And we looked down there and the thing's just had a bunch of codes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I'll turn it off, pull the battery out, let it sit for a while, put the battery back in. Yeah. Figured that was going to fix the problem.
Nope. We were down for the day.
We were down for the day.
But you didn't even get to fly it.
Nope.
Which is a bummer.
I know it flies.
Yeah, it flies.
I know it flies. So I mean, it's a bummer that that happened.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, hey, it's not in pieces.
Nope.
Right. So it didn't have that mishap. The mishap is my radio was down.
Right.
And what day was it?
Monday.
It was Monday, and
very
your very
first
day that you're here, and it was supposed to be 2 weeks of us just flying to my inventory of planes.
Yeah.
And so I was bummed. I'm like, okay, we got to, can we get this fixed? Or can we, write to the factory? Can we do whatever? So I went online, was doing something, and then later you ended up calling Horizon and talking to a guy there, and he's just like, just send me an email.
Take
with
a picture of the codes,
take a picture of the codes, send them to me, and I'll get them off to the right guys, and we'll get right back to you. I call back, and I'm like, hey, we sent the pictures that you told us to send. I don't know if I had the right guy, because he was just like, oh, yeah, we got your stuff. We got all your information. I'm like, that's funny. I never gave you any of my information, but, he's like, yeah, whatever. And Mike's like, that's kind of weird. And he was, according to the other guy, he was supposed to transfer you to this other people and tell you, how to fix it. And I'm like, okay, that guy was like, real short with me, and then we realized it was like 4 or 5 o'clock. So they
5 o'clock.
They were waiting to go home, I guess. So
well, and then it's interesting because when you register your radio with Spectrum, you have to put all your information in there. One of them is your phone number.
Yep.
And when you call them, your phone number comes up, so they immediately pull up your stuff. Unfortunately, I called for Jay. So
you did the first time.
Yeah, I did
the first time. The second time I called.
Right. And so it may have been that the guy didn't have any information, and that's why he said, well, we got all your stuff, because he could see it on the screen when it came up, but he didn't really know what you'd done. You sent an email. And the email didn't come from you.
That's why it came from.
So. But anyway, we finally took him a couple of days. We finally heard back from him, and I think we're going to probably have to send the radio in.
Yeah, unfortunately.
They were like, oh, you can just reset this at home. Just go to this screen and this screen, and unfortunately we can't go to any
screen because it just stays there and just talks to us.
And this was one of those crappy things because honestly, I have a DX18 at home, and I go, hey, I always bring my radio. I mean, anytime Jay and I visit each other, we always bring each other's radio, because normally if we go fly together, then you got your radio, I got my radio. You just did something on Facebook Live where you had the free FR Sky. And so he's like, dude, I got 2 radios, we're good to go. I can fly my FR Sky radio stuff, and you can, because he's got it on a couple of things, and you can just fly Spectrum stuff. And I'm like, all right, perfect. I won't bring my radio then. I should have brought my radio. Hindsight's 2020, though.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
I know, but I can still probably have my wife FedEx it down or something. I can't decide which is better, to just go buy a new radio or FedEx that one, because that's going to cost pretty close to the same amount, right? To overnight something. And so anyway, it kind of put a damper on us. But luckily, thank you once again for we were out the field, and Jim said, hey,
Jim came through.
Yeah,
man.
Jim said, hey, man, I got a whole stack of FR Sky receivers. He's like, here. And he brought us a box, and there were 6 or 7 or 8 in there. And so
I've been doing a crash course on programming
how to
all
program
these things
all
and putting them in all the different planes. And so we got the old favorite Tough Wing. We got out,
flew that today. It was
flew
fun.
that today.
Yeah, it was fun.
Had a nice little 3D, crack yak line today, and super wind. That was fun.
Oh yeah, that's right. Our little laser, right? Is what you're talking about. Yeah. How'd you like flying that in the wind?
It was interesting.
Yeah.
It was most interesting to see how much you can bend.
Yeah, it was fun. The tail was kind of floppy
because that tail was just a wagon.
But the wind did wind really was doing some cool stuff though, right?
It was.
I had that sucker just kind of standing there, and it was messing around.
It was a lot of fun.
So
what else do we have out there today?
We had the ASW-28 glider.
Oh, that's right.
And that was kind of the end of our day, but yeah,
very interesting day. I guess we'll get to
story.
that. But yeah, luckily, like I said, Jim came through and he helped us a lot. But I guess you want to talk about a little bit about our day with Jim.
Yeah, I mean, it was my first time meeting Jim, right? I've heard about him, and I've talked to you, and you've kind of flown with him for the last 2 years or so, so Jim was all excited. I think let's get some stuff out.
Well, you were the only podcast member that he hadn't met, because
that's right, because Mike's
been down here and he's met him, and Mike helped him out with his radio and some other things, and we all flew together.
Sure.
So you were.
So this was my first time coming down and flying with Jim, but so Jim brought out some stuff, and we flew it around, and it wasn't quite to my liking or what I was used to, but I totally understand, how he set those up, and so we talked a little bit about it, and I made a couple of suggestions, and he took them to heart, and then we went up and flew, and I think he liked. I took it that he liked it a little bit better. He felt more comfortable with the airplanes. We've mentioned on a podcast before, Jim uses a little bit more expo than what we're used to, and I think he had been a little more aggressive with the expo than I would like. And you mentioned, once or twice that it was a little aggressive, and so he was complaining that the landings were sometimes a little exciting because it'd come down there and the airplane would just go skyward. And we had figured out that in a couple of his radios, he had put 100% throw and 100% expo.
Yeah.
And folks, let me tell you that, and I think Jim will tell you now too, that it's probably not the wisest idea, because now you're moving the stick all the way out to the max before you get any type of.
You're burying the sticks.
Yeah. And so, we made a couple of suggestions, and I asked him why he was doing all that, and he kind of explained it to me, and I totally understand, right, for the why he felt that way, and so we talked a little about it, and then I got him to back some of that down. So we backed the expo down to about 30%, and which is still high for me. Normally I fly either no expo or I fly about 20-21% somewhere around.
Well, it depends on the aircraft.
It does depend on the airplane, and then but for him and his style of flying and the reasons behind why he does what he does, and I did that, and so I went up and kind of flew some of his airplanes, and he would take off and fly it, and then say, okay, here, let me know how let me know how this is. So I think a couple of his airplanes needed retrimming, and so I retrimmed some of those, got them all where they kind of flew the way they should fly, and he was all excited. And then the next day, he showed up with a bunch of new airplanes. So we kind of worked on all those.
Yeah. Well, the nice part,
he brought the glow ones out.
The nice part was the first day he showed up all electric, right?
That's right. Yep.
And then we didn't crash anything that first. Actually, that was pretty good.
We did the orbit or whatever.
That's my plane.
Yeah. No. We crashed his, right, with the return to home thing. We had to go into the.
That was just the winglet thing. That was because of a bad launch. That wasn't due to.
No, where we had to go out into the desert or into the woods and find it.
Oh, that was me. Yeah. Okay, now I remember. Sorry, so much stuff.
Yeah, you're trying to push that under the rug.
Yeah. So the plane was all black, folks, and basically I got out kind of far. I was flying the plane has a Maytech 410 or 411 in it, and so as I was trying to figure out the different stabilized modes, I was in, I guess, one of the angle modes. That's it. I was in angle mode. So that limits the amount of angle that you can bank the plane. So I wasn't really thinking about it, and I go to make a turn, and I'm like, wow, it is taking forever for this thing to turn, And I'm
it was.
And we're flying it. There's a lot of space out where we're at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is taking forever.
Yeah,
and
you were going way out there.
So it's flying further and further away from me. And this plane, even though we put a lot of markings on it, it's that morning that was rather cloudy. So it was already kind of darkish, and with a jet black EPP plane, it's really easy to lose orientation. So I'm like, okay, I need to bring this back. So I said, well, let me click it back into manual. So I was the guy who was burying the sticks because I'm trying to make the plane turn, and it's not turning. So I have the sticks almost buried, and I click it into manual mode. So the plane does exactly what I asked it to do.
Yep, it buried the sticks.
And it says, "Hey, he has the sticks buried. Let me show him what will happen when he does that." So the plane, does a
about
roll,
3 rolls.
Does about 3 rolls in about half a second. I'm like, whoa!
And it pitched towards the ground.
And it pitched right. Yeah, so. It did all that all in 1 second, and I'm like, whoa! I kind of release everything. It kind of does a couple of half turns. I kind of pull back on the stick.
And it went the wrong way.
Yep. But I kept pulling, and luckily it hit the ground, of course. But when it hit, it landed flat. It didn't break. I didn't even break a prop when we found it.
Well, it's a pusher prop, so that's good news you didn't break it because it hit the nose.
Yeah, and I just tore a little bit of the
yeah.
UPP
It actually went through a tree, but it was headed straight to the ground. And I don't know what you did, but when it went through the tree, somehow it switched to a return to home mode.
Oh, when it was on the ground. After it sits there for a while, it decided.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
It lost it. So anyway, it went through and it hit, and it's just happened to be on the top of this ridge that's got like some pine trees or juniper trees. Mm-hmm. So the ground is like really mushy from all the leaves and the pine needles and stuff. So it was like, it hit like a sponge, doing, and it just barely took a little nick out of there where it hit the tree on the way down. And but the good news is we could hear this thing for miles because it was, that sucker was turning. So we took off running, and it was across the river, but we were able to find it. So, and then Jim was a little distressed because he had just finished building that thing. This was like the maiden after he got it all put together, and he's like, "Oh, how many pieces is it in?" And I started laughing. I was like, "Well, I've got one piece,
the whole piece,
the whole piece. It was in really good shape." So Jay lucked out there.
Oh yeah.
But today was not so lucky, right?
No,
actually,
so
I take that back. We were lucky today too.
You were lucky.
I was lucky. Well, how was I lucky?
Because you thought you lost something today.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I was
small
lucky.
And tiny, but you can look through it.
Yeah. So Jim purchased this. What they call it It's a tiny. It's not a.
It's a tiny whoop.
A tiny whoop,
but it has brushless motors.
Right. So it's actually not called a tiny whoop.
It's a Snapper 6.
Snapper 6, and the Snapper 6 is this. Literally, it's a quad copter that will
65 millimeter tiny whoops.
Fit in your hand.
Right. It's
It is so tiny. Anyway, we're out at this field, which is mild. I mean, it's a big field. It's a normal size aircraft field because the guy used to fly his Cub off of it. And so I'm out there, and the wind's howling, and Jay flew it. Jim flew it, and I was like, "Oh, let me try." So I went out there, and I was flying around. It's fine. But Jim asked me to turn it around so he could see, where I was going to show him that if you turn it around towards us, you actually have to kind of tilt it back into the wind as opposed to going forward in the wind. So I did all that. And then I tilted it forward so we could fly towards us, and the wind kicked up, and it just started coming at us like a baseball. So I didn't want to hit anybody, so I hit the throttle and got it above where we were standing because it was coming right at us.
You should have hit somebody. It would have stopped it.
I should have hit somebody. Yeah, you're right. I should have.
That thing's so tiny. Ow.
I know. But that's not how I'm thinking, right? It's a safety first kind of thing. And so anyway, I should have just chopped the throttle. It would have fallen down right there.
Like a leaf.
But I didn't want to hit the cars behind us either because the cars were there and we were
like a leaf.
And I hit the throttle. And so it actually went up and started moving faster because the wind was going faster.
Well, I know because I was looking through the FPV goggles.
Oh, that's right. You were sitting down looking through the goggles, giving you a ride. And then it started going towards the trees. And he's like, the trees. And so I hit the throttle again. It went max and went above the trees. That was my mistake because that sucker took off. I mean, the wind was howling at that point.
Yep.
And I should have stayed really low to the ground, but I didn't. So anyway, it went into the woods, and I was trying to get it turned into the wood. Once again, I was in angle mode, so it only goes, forward a certain way. I wasn't flying it in the horizon
mode, which
will flip it and do all sorts of 3D stuff. But I wasn't in that mode because we were helping Jim learn, and so I was like maxed out. I had full throttle and full forward, and I'm like, dude, this thing is not coming back. And I was trying to slowly turn it to get,
which folks you got to understand is impossible because it's 65 millimeters. It's tiny.
Oh yeah,
it's hard to tell.
It's a
red dot. That's all you see. There's no orientation. You couldn't. Once I'm the only guy with the goggles,
right?
Because I was like, hey, really? I said this in the very beginning. You should probably fly with the goggles because then you keep your orientation, know what's going on because you got the first person view.
What I should have done is just handed you the radio.
That would have been pretty good. Yeah,
you could have saved it. But
next thing I'm like I said, I'm along for this ride and I'm kind of like, whoa. As I'm watching this thing go over the road, and then I'm like, then I just see it flying down the road, and I'm like, oh, I know you can't do anything.
Nope. At that point I was because the RF signal got lost and it was on its way. So it does not have a return to home feature.
No, it's only 65 millimeters.
I know, right? But it got up high enough that it started moving, and I was like, okay, that's
right.
it.
And it only has a little 25, a teeny tiny transmitter, a receiver on it. So it flew out of range.
And it's got like a 1-cell battery.
And 250 milliamp battery is all it has.
Yeah. So anyway, it got up, it's out of range, and when it loses the RF signal, it just shuts itself off.
Yeah, and it comes falling out of the sky.
So it did. It went over into the woods, boom, shut down. And we're talking that these are juniper trees, so it's just solid. Yep. I mean, you'd have to like a machete yourself through these woods. It's real. I don't know if anybody's been in, kind of central Texas, but it's just, they're tall. They're probably about 20 or 30 feet tall, and it's just solid trees, and, they grow all into each other, and it's just like a big jungle. And so anyway, Jay and I, Jay goes up. I lost the video signal, so we took off running,
right. And I said, okay, here's what I remember seeing, where it was flying down the road this way. So we start walking down the road, and I'm walking along, and in my, I'm looking through my goggles, I'm taking them on and off so I don't trip over myself. But then all of a sudden I had no signal, and then all of a sudden a little bit of the signal came back, and I go,
and the radio said telemetry.
Yeah, telemetry found,
or whatever, because it said telemetry lost, and then it goes telemetry found, which means we're close,
right?
Because it's picked up the signal again.
So the telemetry started working, the mic comes over with the radio. I started fiddling with it, but I couldn't get the RSSI to display on his little display.
On my radio.
On the radio. So I look in the goggles, and sure enough, I have the RSSI value in my radio. Of the radio in my goggles. So I said, "Oh, great! I can see the RSSI value." So I said, "Come with me." And as we were walking, I go, "Okay, it's going. Went from nothing. Hey, it's at 30%. Hey, we're getting closer. Hey, we can use this to vector in.
We can
find this thing.
Bracket it.
We can bracket it and find this thing." So we start going through the woods, and the value's going higher, and I'm Mike's using it like a Geiger counter and pointing the antenna this way or that way, and I'm giving him which way to go. And then we kind of switched off, and we're making headway towards this thing. The signal's getting higher and higher and higher and higher. And the last time I looked, you can see the battery. It also displays what the battery voltage is at. And I'm like, hey, it's at
3.7 or 3.8.
Yeah, 3.8. We got lots of battery life. We can find this thing.
You shouldn't have said that.
I shouldn't have.
Because as soon as those words came out of his mouth, boom. Signal drops.
The signal drops, and all the RSSI value in my video signal dies. And I'm like, what happened?
Telemetry lost, everything.
So
everything got lost.
So we're like, oh no. And we're running around trying to, backtrack to where we were getting something, and then we couldn't figure out what was going on.
Nope.
And we're like, oh man. So I walked back out in the road, Mike's still in the woods, and I'm just like, that's it. That thing's gone. You just can't walk the woods and like find that thing. It's just no way.
And we knew it was sitting on the ground because the last view we had was looking up through the trees.
It was
sitting,
trees. Yeah,
it was sitting up.
Yeah.
So that even makes it harder because it's in the thin profile as opposed to sitting on the ground.
On the ground, right.
Like a flat.
So I'm just like, well, if the battery's done, you can't even see the LEDs.
Nope.
At least in the darkened woods, you could see the LEDs better and stuff. But I'm like, hey, if that 250 milliamp battery's done, we're toast. So I'm like, I've given up. Normally I'll put in the effort to look for something, but after that thing died, I'm just like, yeah, you're not gonna, that's literally the needle in the haystack.
Oh, that would have been too.
So I'm on the road, and Jim comes out, and he goes, any luck? And I say, hey, we were heading towards it. It was looking good. And then all of a sudden everything died. He goes, oh yeah, don't worry about it. It's okay. He goes, where's the, how do we walk out of here to get back to the trucks and stuff? So him and I walk out, and by this time now I'm all hot and sweaty, and I'm like, oh, let me get a bottle of water. And I reach in my bag, get a bottle of water. I start chugging it down. I'm looking in the field, wondering where Mike is at as he's running through the juniper jungle.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I turn around, and there's his Snapper 8 or Snapper 6 sitting on the in the middle of the table. And I like almost choke on my water. I'm like, how'd that get here? And Jim looks over at me. He goes, I guess this has returned home after all. And I go, what? No, it doesn't. What? Who? Is somebody else here? I was just stupefied.
Yeah.
I was looking at him like, I'm looking around the field like, who else is here?
Right.
Somebody, was this here when we walked up here? Was this here? And he goes, yeah, man, that thing just must have came home when it figured we lost the signal for the radio. And I'm like, it can't do that. And and then he gets this, big,
goofy grin
on his face. And he's like, no, man, I found it out in the field. And I'm like, really? You found that? And he goes, well, I saw where it was headed.
Yeah.
So I kind of had a good idea where it was going, and I just kind of walked that line, and I walked right up to it. He goes, I was pretty lucky. And I was like, wow, you were. So
in the meantime, I'm walking around out there because I'm going to buy him a new one because I'm the one that lost it, right? So I'm thinking, I'm going to give this a pretty valiant effort before I have to spend the money to buy another one. I mean, I'd already planned on ordering a new one because I'm that kind of guy.
So anyway, you come walking out of the woods, and before that, Jim looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, when Mike gets back, I'm messing with him.
You're going to make him feel really bad.
I'm going to make him feel really bad for losing my quad." And I go, "Oh, good." And so we're sitting there.
That is why we like him. Right
that's
there.
Right. That's why he's our friend. So anyway, he hides. He throws the thing under the towel that was sitting on the table. And Mike comes back and he goes, "I looked all back up for it. I'll go back out and try again." And Jim's like, "Yeah, well, And I said to him, "Yeah, and your wife got that for you for your anniversary. She's gonna have to get you another anniversary gift." And so, we're just.
So I told him at that point though, I was like, "Yeah, I feel bad." I said, "I'll buy you a new one."
He goes, "Don't worry about it. I'll get you a new one. I'll order you one. And I'm gonna go back out. Blah 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 blah." And so
Jim holds this up and he goes, "Well, I have an extra one." And I go, "Well, that's nice, that he has an extra. That doesn't make me feel any better."
So Mike won't believe. We're trying to bait, hey, we got an extra one. Did you see an extra one? Did you see another box?
No, I didn't.
It was just one of those things. Jim's like, "Hey, I got this here," and no, I'm going to go back on the field. And we're like, "Hey, no, don't go out there." He wouldn't listen to us as he was going out. And finally, Jim goes, "Don't go out there, man. I got it right here." And he's like, and Mike's like, "What? I mean, that's the one that got lost in." And Jim's like, "Yeah." He goes, I was trying to tell you, wouldn't listen to us." And we're like, oh.
So then I came back, walked back, and we started discussing about when he found it.
Yeah.
And that was the whole reason that we lost all the RSS feed.
Oh, because he unplugged it.
Yeah.
When he found it.
When he found it, he picked it up and pulled it out. And therefore, all of our stuff went blank and we were lost. But had we known that, we could just all walk back. But no, Jim made me walk around the woods for 10 or 15 minutes. So
it was all in good fun. So it was fun after the fact. So you guys,
Well, it was fun. It was a good day. We still have a ton more stories, and the whole point of this podcast is to discuss our RC adventures. So I guess we'll have to continue this, but
heck yeah, because you still got another week.
I do. Yeah, we have another week. We still have to fly some other stuff, but I think our hour's up.
What?
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
I know, right? It's kind of a shame. We could probably do all year long in just this week.
Well, actually, if we can get our butts out and do some other stuff, we actually might have a couple of cool things coming.
Yeah, that's true. We've got a couple of guys that we could go see if they're available. So the good news is Philip Hinkle that came out and visited me in Arizona.
Phillip!
He's right now is down in Miami. And he got some audio for us for our next podcast after this one, I think, of a little event that he attended down there. So we're excited about him kind of putting, an effort into it with us and taking care of our Facebook listeners page. He's done that. And, we're doing a good job. I think we're still trying to talk to Tim Hanstein about maybe his new line of products as well. So that's should be coming up sometime soon. A lot of good things. So unfortunately today, and we got, like I said, we didn't even get to talk about your glider and coming apart and none of that stuff. So we'll have to fit in.
We'll fit it in with the rest of the shenanigans that will probably happen this coming week.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, well, we're excited about the next week coming up. This podcast comes out Tuesday morning, and we'll probably put one together for after that as well. On Philip's trip, we've got some audio from him visiting down there. If you have any topics for us, go ahead on our listeners page group and throw that in there, or send us an email at theparkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. And let's go out and have some more shenanigans.
Absolutely, buddy.
Well, for this week, we apologize. We still got more to talk about, but that's it for our hour. So from here in Texas, I'm Michael.
And I'm Jay from the hills of Texas.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
You bet.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.